Food. We all love food. At least I know that I do. But the real question is, do we know what we're really putting into our bodies? I know for a fact when I go eat at a restaurant like McDonald's or Jack in the Box or Taco Bell, I don't really know what the meat's made out of or anything like that because it's super cheap and I just go there with my friends because I have the money. But in an article from the NewYorker.com, as much as we want to say that we want more details about the products inside the food and on the label, all we want more is the price tag. And this goes to show that a lot of customers are looking for the ingredients that will harm us, but they're looking for more bang for the buck, per se. Today I'm going to emphasize to you what a GMO really is, what harmful effects can be there, and the benefits we can receive. Let's just get into the juicy details about the GMOs, shall we? GMOs are thoroughly explained on responsibletechnology.org as the result of a laboratory process where genes from the DNA of one species are extracted and artificially forced into one gene of an unrelated plant or animal. The foreign genes that may come from bacteria, viruses, insects, animals, or even humans. Because it involves a transfer of genes, GMOs are known as transgenic organisms. And this goes to show that they're not actual natural ingredients or organic ingredients. It's actually like physically getting one chemical and putting it into something else that is totally unrelated to it. So it just doesn't have any relation at all. So it's not like, it's kind of like having corn going into like rice. It just doesn't really make too much sense. All the genetically modified organisms, because of the tests that were done to make this possible, it goes to show that a lot of like the food that we can get, they can just make it a lot cheaper. So it will make a lot more, and yeah, it will get more bang for your buck eventually because you can make more food with less land. And while it saves the company's time, many of the customers have no concern with it because they're not really told too much about the GMOs that are in the foods. And in the process, like to you and I really didn't know there was a lot of like genetic modification in much food that I eat, like pretty much daily food that I eat. And all they know, like a lot of people that I looked up on just a random research, just a Google fact, it was just that a lot of people just know that it's not good for you, but they don't really know what GMO really stands for. It's genetically modified organism. And they just know that like it just has a negative connotation to the name. And also it increases a large herbicide because of the farmers using it really heavily now to make more profit, as according to responsibletechnology.org again. And now that I've stated really what a GMO is and how the world hasn't really incorporated it into daily life, I'll move into the pros of having a GMO into our diets. Genetically modified organisms have a very negative connotation to the name, but they're very positive in some sorts. It goes to show that that can be a really positive benefit because a lot of weed reduction is there. So a lot of farmers, when they actually harvest the food and such, the crops will not be like as messed with and stuff, like with the actual rodents and stuff that get into plants, like in organic foods. Because like if you notice at organic foods, there's a lot of bugs around like the plants and stuff. And then it looks like there's a lot of like holes and such, like in the leaf, like in lettuce and like in tomatoes and stuff. So it just goes to show that like it'll look really full and like juicy, but it's not, you know, the full thing, like how we used to have it. And in an article from UC Santa Cruz, the author goes to state that plants will be created better to wheat resistance, pest resistance, and other diseases like for the future. And it says that corn is practically used all over the world because corn was pretty much used for everything, like grease. I mean, we just eat it all the day. Like, it's a lot of MSG comes from that stuff, but that's not really the topic. And it says that it can feed a lot more Americans while using more of like the corn things, and it can like reduce a lot of the corn hazards. And then with the weed reduction, it goes to show that a lot more efficiency is there, and a lot more people would be able to be like fed with this stuff. In the same article written from UC Santa Cruz again, it says that genetic engineering from the plants has the potential to provide and enable plants vaccines that could be immune for people that have cholera or potentially AIDS. And I don't know about you, but this just goes to show that, you know, like maybe some huge diseases that have been like really, really big in like the past few years and like the past few decades can maybe be kicked just because of GMOs maybe one day. And no one knows, maybe it could lead to cancer or anything else like that, maybe autism or anything, we just don't know. Now that I've stated the positives of GMOs, such as all of the produce that it can feed to people, and if the research keeps going on, a lot of the diseases that it can help cure, now I'm going to talk about the polar opposites. Modified doesn't sound like it's natural, it sounds pretty vague. And all these organisms that we have created now have a lot of negative aspects to them also. In such a short period of time that it's been used for, the side effects for years down the road are unknown. In a test done by Dr. William David on CNN.com, it states that genetically modified wheat has a new protein called gallium, and gallium binds to operate receptors in the brain, and most people stimulates appetite. So it just has more an effect of like not feeling technically full, but you mentally feel full. So you just don't eat as much. So the people that are actually selling the food don't have to sell as much to get you full. And it goes like in a short period of time, it goes to say that a lot of the harm can be there just because it's not really organic materials in the body, so we don't know how it's actually being processed inside the body like a normal food will. All the toxins that we put into the food, it just doesn't seem like it's right to actually have them into our body, you know, because like they literally inject it with different needles and different sorts of things to get these GMOs into there just to save more money in the process. But it just doesn't really make sense to put it into our body and feed our body and give us energy because of that stuff. I myself can notice a difference when I actually eat out like somewhere, such as like McDonald's or something like that. I just kind of feel lethargic for the rest of the day. When it's like if I actually do eat something like home cooked, like from Sprouts or Trader Joe's or anything like that, and it's like an organic chicken breast and some rice, it feels a lot better. Alright, in conclusion, I just wanted to inform you that the genetically modified organisms that we consume, and then we just don't really know what the whole aspects of what they can do later on in the future. But also there are some positives to it because it will actually help some people in life. Just the next time that you go to a fast food place, just make sure to ask them what the ingredients are. Thank you.
Can I look at your notes for a second?
Yeah, sure.
I want to make sure before I jump on you about something.
I just crossed out one of the things, so I didn't have the video.
It's okay. All right, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
All right, no, I got a word that I'm going to give you a hard time about, and I want to make sure that it's the word that I think it is, and that you said it wrong. That's all. So when I make a comment about it, I feel pretty confident that I'm not completely out of my mind. All right, let's talk about the content and structure first. I like the way you lead into the topic. I think that there's a good kind of background story that's not directly the topic, but kind of moves us to that, which I appreciated. It's not quite clear what you're going to say about the topic at the beginning of the speech. At the end, you've got a little bit clearer thesis, but I think it ought to be clearer from the beginning. I mean, I know what the subject is, but sometimes it sounds like it's a good thing, sometimes it sounds like it's a bad thing. If your purpose is to simply explain what the positive and negative ramifications are of genetically modified foods, say that and keep it relatively simple. I think you kind of dive in and just start talking about those things, and that's a little bit problematic. There's not really a structural preview of the material, although when I'm listening, I can see that natural division between the positive and the negative. That's not hard to pick out. There are little bits and pieces of information dispersed throughout the presentation, and I do think you have research that you get into the presentation, but then there are also times when you are kind of going with the flow, and you aren't necessarily as clear and articulate as you might be. I got a few phrases like things and stuff, and I'm not exactly sure what things and stuff you're talking about. That's a little bit problematic. Okay, let's talk about the delivery issues. You're locked into one position the whole time. You don't seem to move from that spot. That's one of those indicators of anxiety. Gestures, it's hard to gesture when one hand's in the pocket and the other hand is holding onto the script, so that's problematic. Your facial expressions when you look up, you do a pretty good job, but you're not looking up very often because there's just a lot of reading during the presentation. So you got to be careful about that. And what are you reading? You're reading the biggest damn piece of paper you can find, holding it up there like that, something to hide behind, which I, have strongly discouraged from the very beginning, and apparently nobody listens to me. You're like my own kids. Nobody ever pays attention to me. Dog never pays attention to me. My wife never pays attention to me. And now my students don't pay attention to me. Come on, get those big pages out of your hands. If you're going to use some notes, put them on cards, make them relatively small, brief notes, that sort of thing. Okay, on your voice, I think you project pretty well. The variety in your voice is not as strong as it could be because you're reading. I think that's a little bit problematic. All right, I want to give you that shot about pronunciation. Choleria is not the way it's said. Cholera is the word. Cholera is a disease. When you said that, I said vaccines against choleria. I said, what the hell is choleria? Cholera, yes, okay, I just got it. However, now you're going to be on the Wall of Fame, and next semester everybody will see, right there next to obese will be choleria. All right, sorry about that. All right, that's good. Thank you.